Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Tutoring Tips episode of the Prepped and Polished podcast. It's Anooj of Prepped and Polished. Please be sure to check out our website, www.preppedandpolished.com, for more information. While you're there, sign up for our free tutoring and test prep tips newsletter. It comes out monthly. You can join our Prepped and Polished community on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for Prepped and Polished. You can submit a question during the show or after to radio@preppedandpolished.com. We love hearing from you. Tip number 1, formulas. There are a lot of formulas on the AP Physics exams, and you'll be using these formulas throughout the entire exam, the multiple choice and the free responses. And you have to understand that all of these equations and formulas are going to be used to arrive at the right answer. And so it's very important to know all the formulas and specifically what every variable in the formula means and when to apply them. Now here I have an example. So suppose you get to the magnetism section and you see these two different formulas, F equals ILB and F equals QVB. Now they're both magnetic forces, and it gets confusing because you don't know when to use it. You know the question asks you to calculate the magnetic force, but you don't know when. You don't know which formula to use. You see two of them. What you should be doing is figuring out what each variable means. You see I, current, L for length, B for magnetic field. And when you see the L, it should give you kind of an intuition that there's a length going on here. So I should be looking at some kind of thing with a length. So that should be a current carrying rod. Whereas the second equation has Q, which is a charge, V, velocity, and B, magnetic field strength. In that situation, you have a velocity and then you have a charge. So you know that's magnetic force of a moving charge. So going through all the equations and comparing them and contrasting them and seeing the relationships between them is going to give you a better idea of how to approach the problem. You have to keep in mind that every problem only has a certain variations of the number of equations and formulas that are being used inside them. So by being very comfortable with these formulas, you'll do really well and get a 5 on the AP Physics exam. Tip number 2. Now this is a pretty cool trick to use on the multiple choice section. Every now and then you'll get these different multiple choice questions and you might not know which formula to exactly use, or you're a little confused on how to manipulate the values in the question stem to get the right answer. And a good check and a good way to do this is to focus on the units. For example, this is a very simple example, but suppose you see in the question stem a mass of a ball, and then you also see the acceleration of the ball. So you see kilograms and meters per second squared. You've got these two different units, and you see that all the answer choices are in newtons. Now, all you have to know is how newtons relate to kilograms and meters per second squared. And by looking at the formula sheet, you see the formula F equals ma. So all you need to do is multiply them. So if you're ever in doubt which formula to use, look at the units. Some formulas only have certain units. And it's a good way to check that you're using the right equation and that you're going the right way in solving the problem. All right, tip number 3, past AP exams. On the College Board website, you'll find a list of all the past AP Physics exams. Go through the free response questions and try to get questions done from every one of the topics. And there are a lot. But focus on those that are giving you the most trouble. If it's hydrostatics or mechanics or magnetism, focus on those. Try to get at least a few problems done for each one of those topics. And especially in an exam like AP Physics, where you've learned some of this material in past high school courses, you want to stay away from focusing too much on those. A lot of students focus too much on the Newtonian aspects of the physics exam, and the free response questions sometimes test more of the newer concepts like hydrostatics, electricity, magnetism. So don't get bogged down on those older topics. Try to focus more on those new ones. And if you feel like you're really solid with the Newtonian mechanics, move on. You want to spend your time doing those problems that are giving you the most trouble. So on the test day, you'll have all the concepts down pat and you'll be very comfortable doing those problems. Also, look at the sample responses. Sometimes there are conceptual questions. For example, in the thermodynamics sections, they ask you different conceptual questions and there's not necessarily a calculated answer. And in order to get full credit on these questions, you want to be able to answer them in a style that the College Board likes. And to know what style that is, you have to start going through the sample responses and seeing what other students have done to get 5s in the exams. And so there you guys have it. 3 simple tips on how to get a 5 on the AP Physics exams. Tip number 1, be very comfortable and familiar with all the different formulas on the exams. Tip number 2, Constantly check your units and use these units as sort of a way to look at which formula you need to use on a specific problem. Tip number 3, go through past AP exams, diagnose your weaknesses, and focus on those problems that are giving you trouble. For more information on how to get a 5 on the AP Physics exams, please visit preppedandpolished.com. This wraps up our show, episode number 111, How to Get a 5 on the AP Physics exams. Be on the lookout for our next podcast, episode number 112, our next interview guest episode. Remember to access all of our podcast episodes. Go to www.preppedandpolished.com/podcasts. Thanks for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.